Does your son feel chosen by his father, or merely tolerated? Clinical psychologist Joseph Nicolosi spent decades warning that a father-son bond left to drift can fracture a boy's masculine identity long before he notices the crack. In his research on attachment trauma, Nicolosi traced a straight line between paternal distance, over-involved mothers, and a young man's later confusion about who he is and where his deepest attractions point. That may sound dramatic, yet the evidence is sobering. When boys perceive dad as uninterested or emotionally off-limits, they often search elsewhere for the affirmation a father should have stamped on their hearts. Have you ever watched your child glance at you for approval and wondered what he saw, authority or emptiness? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover could flip your understanding of parental guidance overnight. Picture the family as a triangle: father, mother, son. When each side holds firm, the shape becomes a fortress. When the father side buckles, the entire structure bows inward, trapping the boy in a fusion with mom that Nicolosi called a false safety net. Safeguard this bond and you strengthen the boy's inner compass. Ignore it and he may grow up steering by borrowed stars, friends, screens, cultural slogans that promise belonging, yet quietly rewrite his sense of self. The great news is that masculine identity isn't forged in one heroic weekend, but in dozens of ordinary moments. A playful wrestle on the living room rug, a shared joke that only dad and son understand, a direct eye-to-eye "I'm proud of you," spoken at just the right instant. These micro-links form a chainmail that shields a developing heart from predators both digital and ideological. You already have the raw materials, you just need a map. What if a simple 7-day safeguard protocol could realign the triangle and pull your boy back into the orbit he secretly craves? What you will hear next may surprise you. Not with guilt, but with practical momentum. We're about to break down the exact signals that reveal when the bond is cracking and the precise moves any father can make to weld it stronger than ever. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. So as you replay those ordinary moments in your own living room, maybe a half-finished Lego set, a silent car ride, a glance that lingers a second too short, take a breath and tell me, what detail just landed hardest for you? Drop it in the comments while it's fresh. One honest line about your story can become the compass for another father who stumbles on this video at 2 in the morning, wondering if he's already too late. When you tap like, the YouTube algorithm reads it as a flare that says, "More families need this map," and the platform widens the circle beyond our conversation. And if you hit subscribe, you're not collecting another notification. You're stepping into a watchtower with us, making sure the next layer of this safeguard blueprint reaches you before the next cultural wave hits your child's shore. Your participation here is the fuel that keeps this fortress lit, spreading a beacon parents can see from miles away. Imagine the family triangle as a living compass. The father anchors the side called identification, the mother sustains the edge called nurture, and the boy steadies himself at the base, seeking safety from both forces. When each point is balanced, energy flows in a loop of confidence. A son sees his father's strength, feels his mother's warmth, and quietly decides, "I belong here." But the compass can tilt. In households where dad retreats, physically to the office, emotionally behind his phone, the mother often overcorrects, stretching protectiveness into fusion. The triangle rotates and the boy begins orbiting the maternal side, soaking up affection, yet drifting from the masculine mirror that should confirm his own budding identity. Joseph Nicolosi described this rotation as a seismic shift. The boy's hunger for male affirmation does not vanish. It simply seeks new geography, sometimes emerging years later as attraction aimed at peers who embody the masculinity he never integrated. The mechanics are easier to see than most parents realize. Picture a Saturday soccer game. The mother cheers every move, even the stumbles. The father scrolls weather updates, commenting only when the score turns south. The boy feels the instant sting of misalignment. Maternal praise washes over him. Paternal hunger lingers unmet. According to attachment theory, Those small vacancies accumulate like uncredited overdrafts, each one inching the triangle off-center. Neuroscience backs it up. Functional MRI scans reveal that positive paternal signals light up the nucleus accumbens, the reward hub, more intensely in boys than identical praise from mothers, confirming that dad's voice carries a unique biochemical signature. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Think of the mother's role, not as competitor, but as relay runner. Healthy nurture hands the baton of security to the father at crucial developmental checkpoints. Rough and tumble play at age 5, skill challenge around 8, moral initiation during pre-adolescence. When those handoffs happen on time, the loop closes, and the boy internalizes the message. My father's world is safe. My mother's world is safe. Therefore, my own emerging masculinity is safe. However, if the baton never passes because mom fears dad's rough edges or because dad decides the race is hers to run, the boy receives half a signal: comfort without challenge. In developmental psychology, this mismatch is called incongruent mirroring, a state where the child's reflected self feels fractured, driving him to search for missing shards in external relationships. Small corrections realign the shape. A father who intentionally kneels eye to eye during conflict transmits identification. I see your struggle, and I'm still here. A mother who says, take that question to your dad, he explains it better than I do, practices strategic deferral, allowing the paternal side to regain voltage. Even a shared project, building a birdhouse, repairing an old bike, creates neurochemical snapshots of mastery linked to dad's presence. Snapshots that later serve as internal safeguards when peer pressure or cultural messaging tries to redefine masculinity. The stakes reach beyond orientation into broader mental health. Longitudinal studies in developmental sociology tie robust father-son bonds to lower rates of depressive symptoms, higher resilience scores, and reduced susceptibility to digital escapism. In other words, balancing this triangle is not merely about steering sexual identity. It is about constructing a fortress against the algorithm-driven marketplace of identities that profit from adolescent uncertainty. So as you trace your own family triangle in your mind, where does it feel solid? Where does it wobble? Commenta i.e., seeing the triangle, if a specific moment or insight surfaced while you listened. Your line might give another parent the missing angle to stabilize their own compass, and together we'll keep turning vulnerability into architecture strong enough for the next storm. The first real spark of masculine identity often ignites around age 3, when a boy discovers that wrestling on the carpet with dad feels different from cuddling on the couch with mom. Neuroscientists call this burst of vigorous play a catalyst for neuroplasticity. Tactile pressure, laughter, and rapid shifts of balance flood the limbic system with dopamine and oxytocin, hardwiring the message that physical strength can be gentle, joyful, and safe. Nicolosi believed those early tumbling sessions formed the first thin sheet of armor against what he later called compensatory attraction, the drive to seek male touch that feels simultaneously exciting and forbidden. When dad roars like a playful bear, flips his son upside down, then sets him gently on his feet, the boy learns in his bones that masculinity is both powerful and protective. Between ages 6 and 8, courage testing becomes the secret curriculum. Maybe it's climbing the backyard tree to the branch dad once conquered. Maybe it's hammering the first nail into a wobbly birdhouse. Each challenge triggers a microdose of adrenaline that pushes the prefrontal cortex to negotiate risk, while dad's steady voice anchors the experience in security. Developmental psychologists have measured lower cortisol spikes in children whose fathers observe risk play from arm's length rather than intervene too quickly. The unspoken lesson is, I trust you to try, and I'm here if you fall. That trust calibrates the boy's internal compass toward resilience, reducing the likelihood of later searching for validation in unsafe male company. This point is crucial for you to grasp how things actually unfold, because around 9 to 12, validation shifts from physical prowess to personal honor. The boy starts comparing himself not only to dad but to peers, to athletes on YouTube, even to fictional heroes. Here the father's role becomes verbal, naming virtues out loud. When dad says, I saw how you shared the ball even when you wanted the goal. He forges neural links between character and masculine worth, links that advertising algorithms and pop culture scripts will find difficult to overwrite. In attachment theory, this phase is called the consolidation of the gender self, and fMRI studies demonstrate heightened activity in the anterior insula when boys receive moral praise from fathers rather than mothers, underscoring the distinctive biochemical imprint of paternal affirmation. A practical illustration. A father and son fixing a flat bike tire together appears mundane, but the sequence, problem identified, solution planned, tools chosen, tire reinflated, creates a four-step mastery imprint. Each successful imprint becomes a data point in the boy's mental ledger. Dad believes I can. Over time, that ledger outcompetes digital avatars who promise instant status for a click or a secret photo. Research in positive psychology even links these task-oriented micro-victories to higher serotonin baselines in adolescence, correlating with lower susceptibility to online grooming and peer pressure. When the triangle is balanced this way, the boy internalizes a sentence he might never say aloud. My father's world welcomes me. Therefore, I do not need to audition for manhood elsewhere. And that single conviction, Nicolosi argued, shields the heart from compensatory desire more effectively than any filter or firewall parents can install. If a memory flashed across your mind, a soccer field, a workbench, a moment when courage met approval, write it in the comments with the words, "Bond in progress." Your story could map the next stepping stone for someone still searching for footing in this same journey. A mother's touch is often the first melody a child hears, and when that melody stays attuned, compassionate yet spacious, it becomes the soundtrack of secure attachment. But tenderness can tip into a kind of emotional overexposure that Nicolosi labeled fusion, where a son begins to breathe through his mother's lungs, feel through her nerves, answer questions she never asks aloud. Fusion is subtle. It rarely looks like smothering. It looks like mom translating the waiter before the boy has time to speak for himself, or stepping in to explain his feelings to a coach, or finishing the Lego tower the moment frustration appears. Each rescue feels loving, yet neurons record a different message. You can't handle discomfort. I will handle it for you. Over time, that script teaches him to retreat from the rough edges of masculine challenge back into the velvet familiarity of maternal approval. Modern developmental science frames this dynamic through the lens of helicopter parenting, a term outside Nicolosi's vocabulary but perfectly aligned with his warning. Too much hover robs a child of agency, and agency is the oxygen of healthy identity. Functional MRI studies at Stanford show heightened amygdala reactivity in boys whose mothers routinely preempt minor risks, a neurological precursor to social anxiety. In simpler words, muscles unused atrophy. The courage muscle is no different. When mom consistently shields her son from microfailures, she inadvertently signals that dad's world of tests and tussles is unsafe terrain. The triangle tilts, the boy circles back to the nurturing side, and compensatory attraction waits just beyond adolescence, disguised as a hunger for welcome in another boy's arms. See how essential this is, because the healthiest maternal nurture operates like a greenhouse that opens its vents as the sapling grows. It provides warmth, but it also lets wind toughen the stem. One practical metric is dialogue ratio. If a mother finds herself speaking for her son more than he speaks for himself in public settings, the ratio is off. Another cue is emotional mirroring. When her son stumbles, does she mirror courage? That looked painful, but I know you can try again. Or mirror fear. Come back. You might get hurt. Mirror courage and the boy takes a step toward dad's frontier. Mirror fear and he retreats into the familiar fold of maternal affirmation, reinforcing fusion. Compassion without fusion also means respecting the father-son bond, even when it looks messy. Rough and tumble play can sound like chaos from the kitchen, but developmental biologists link those bursts of kinetic energy to stronger vestibular systems and even higher verbal IQ scores by age 8. When mom hears the thumps and resists the instinct to intervene, She signals trust in both her son's resilience and her partner's protective instinct. That trust becomes a bridge the boy can cross anytime shame whispers, "You're too fragile for the world of men." Warning signs of fusion often appear in body language before words catch up. A boy past age 7 who still prefers to sit on mom's lap in social settings may be seeking emotional anesthesia. Watch for sudden defensiveness when dad invites him to a challenging activity or an exaggerated loyalty narrative. "Only mom understands me." These behaviors do not diagnose destiny, but they blink like dashboard lights. Something under the hood needs attention. Marriage counselors observe that when parents realign their roles, mom stepping back half a pace, dad stepping forward, the child's posture shifts within weeks, shoulders open, eye contact lengthens, peer interactions grow bolder. Balancing nurture requires intentional absence as much as presence. A scheduled mom night off can be transformative. Dad handles dinner, mediates conflicts, reads bedtime stories. The first attempt may feel clumsy, but that very clumsiness teaches the boy a crucial lesson. Masculine care may differ in texture, yet it is equally reliable. Meanwhile, mom reclaims bandwidth for her own passions, reinforcing to the child that a woman's life is not defined solely by caretaking. Such modeling inoculates him against both dependency and chauvinism, two weeds that sprout when the triangle's sides blur. If you just recognized a pattern, a protective reflex, a dialogue ratio, a lap-sitting habit, type balanced nurture below. Naming it here turns a private question into a shared waypoint, and that collective awareness will guide us as we trace the quieter fractures that hide beneath everyday routines. Shame has a stealth mode. It rarely bursts through the front door yelling, "I'm here to distort your child's self-image." It slips in sideways when a boy refuses to join the pool party because he thinks his chest looks wrong next to other boys, or when he habitually hunches his shoulders in photos to shrink the space he occupies, hoping no one notices the awkward growth spurt, the pimples, the extra weight. Body dysmorphia might seem like an aesthetic worry, but Joseph Nicolosi's clinical files show a repeating pattern. Persistent bodily shame often predicts a retreat from male peers, and in some cases, sets the stage for compensatory attraction aimed at the very qualities he feels he lacks. A 2018 meta-analysis in the Journal of Adolescent Health backs this observation, linking high scores on body shame inventories to increased vulnerability to identity confusion, especially when paternal affirmation is scarce. Your attention is crucial here, because isolation doesn't always announce itself with a slammed bedroom door. Sometimes it looks like a boy who hangs back at recess, orbiting the teacher's desk instead of the soccer field, citing homework as an excuse while secretly fearing he'll be outpaced. Other times, isolation hides behind a sophisticated vocabulary. He seems mature for his age, converses easily with adults, yet stumbles when asked to join a pickup game. Researchers in social neurobiology call this hyperadultification a coping strategy that camouflages loneliness by assimilating adult speech patterns. Nicolosi noted that boys displaying this behavior often reported an intensified fascination with safe universes, like fantasy novels, solo video game quests, or fandom forums. Safe universes feel reliable. Characters follow scripts, outcomes can be restarted, avatars never tease you for missing a goal. Clinical data give those anecdotes teeth. One longitudinal study tracked 312 boys, from age 10 to 22, and found that those who reported high engagement with solitary fantasy worlds at 12 and low paternal involvement scored significantly higher on later measures of same-sex attraction, they themselves labeled unwanted. The study does not claim causation, but it does suggest a constellation of factors: body shame, peer avoidance, safe universe fascination, that orbit a missing gravitational center, strong father-son identification, microfractures in attachment leave, fingerprints in daily routines. Pay attention to how your son reacts when male friends arrive unannounced. Does he light up, or does his energy collapse as though playtime is a test he never studied for? Watch his YouTube history. Is it filled solely with tutorials and narrative playthroughs, Or does he also watch real people sweating in real courts and fields? The balance tells a story. Cognitive behavioral therapists argue that repeated exposure to risk-free male arenas reinforces a silent contract. I observe masculinity, I do not join it. Over time, observation without participation morphs into longing wrapped in envy, fertile soil for compensatory attraction. A crucial warning light is the intensity of his emotional response when a male peer criticizes him. If a single teasing remark spirals into hours of withdrawal, you may be looking at a wound far deeper than playground politics. Neuroimaging shows that boys with insecure paternal attachment manifest heightened activity in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's pain center, when faced with male peer rejection. The hurt is processed not as minor social friction, but as evidence of fundamental unworthiness. Left unaddressed, that script can push him toward any environment, digital or physical, that promises unconditional affirmation, even if that promise begins with flattery, masking predatory intent. Repair begins with gentle confrontation. Invite him into cooperative risk, not competitive risk. Build a model plane that might crash, cook a new dish that could flop, hike a trail neither of you has mastered. Shared vulnerability rewrites the ledger of self-doubt faster than praise alone. Compliment effort over outcome, grit over grace. Each time he sees you fumble and recover, he learns that masculine worth is elastic, not brittle. As neuroscientist Andrew Huberman notes, observational learning in high-trust relationships accelerates dopaminergic reinforcement, meaning your resilience becomes chemically contagious. If any snapshot from your own home flashed through your mind, a hunched photo pose, a solitary game marathon, a shy refusal to swim, drop the words, "mending the fracture" below. Your observation might light up a dashboard warning for another parent steering through the same fog. A father's presence is not measured by how many hours he spends in the same room, but by the intensity of the moments he chooses to claim. A well-designed safeguard protocol compresses what truly matters into deliberate actions that speak louder than 100 generic reassurances. Start with exclusive father-son time, even if it is just 15 minutes each evening without phones, TVs, or background noise. Neuroscience confirms that undivided attention triggers a surge of oxytocin and dopamine, creating emotional imprints that last longer than any lecture. Nicolosi highlighted that these micro-rituals do not just improve the bond, they recalibrate a boy's inner sense of masculine identity, anchoring him to a father figure who is engaged, responsive, and confident. Hands-on projects add another layer of attachment healing. Whether it is building a birdhouse, fixing a bike, or cooking a new recipe, shared problem-solving creates a feedback loop of trust and capability. The boy observes how his father navigates frustration, adapts to setbacks, and celebrates small wins. This observational learning embeds a blueprint of resilience and independence that modern digital environments cannot replicate. Studies in parental guidance have shown that children who participate in collaborative tasks with their fathers develop higher levels of self-efficacy and empathy, both of which act as psychological armor against peer pressure and online grooming tactics. Public praise of masculinity, though often overlooked, has a profound psychological impact. A father's words, spoken in front of others, validate a boy's strength, creativity, or courage, reinforcing the idea that being masculine is not about domination, but about purpose and integrity. Nicolosi observed that when boys receive consistent and positive reinforcement from their fathers, they are less likely to seek affirmation in distorted or unsafe ways. It is not the applause that matters most, but the authenticity behind it. When a father says, "I saw how you handled that challenge and I'm proud of you," he is building a narrative that his son can carry into every future relationship. Equally critical are clear boundaries between mother and son. This does not mean emotional distance from the mother, but rather a recognition that a boy needs both parents to play distinct and complementary roles. When the mother acknowledges the father's role as a guide into manhood, the triangle realigns naturally. Family therapists often emphasize that healthy boundaries reduce emotional enmeshment, allowing the boy to grow into his own identity instead of constantly seeking maternal approval. The concept of a family code of honor might sound old-fashioned, but it works because it is simple. Establish a shared principle, something as straightforward as, we tell the truth even when it hurts, or we stand up for those who can't, and live it daily. This shared creed becomes the silent heartbeat of the household, a constant reminder that belonging here comes with both love and responsibility. It teaches a boy that his identity is built not on fleeting trends, but on values that endure. Your attention is valuable here. If you'd like, you can even jot this down so you won't forget. Because when these protocols are practiced consistently, they form a lattice strong enough to carry the weight of adolescence. A boy who knows he is seen, trusted, and guided does not have to audition for his worth in front of peers or screens. He walks into the world with an internal safeguard, a conviction that he is capable, connected, and grounded. This foundation does more than prevent negative outcomes. It sets him up to lead, create, and love with confidence. The future of the triangle is not about perfection, but about presence. Even a father who feels he has missed years of connection can begin now, with one intentional moment at a time. The boy's need for guidance does not expire at a certain age. It simply changes form. A son at 12 needs reassurance of strength, while at 16, he needs trust in his decision-making. These are milestones you can still meet, no matter when you start. If while listening you imagined one small action you could take this week, a conversation, a project, a moment of praise, share it in the comments with the phrase, "Building the Fortress." Your insight might be the spark another parent needs to start their own blueprint. Picture the scene 5 years from now. The sun is dropping behind the bleachers. Your son's team has just lost by 3 goals, and the sting of defeat is raw on his face. He walks toward you expecting the usual cliches, but instead, you crouch to eye level and say, "I saw how hard you fought, and I'm proud to stand beside a young man who doesn't quit." In that moment, neuroplasticity works in your favor. The brain associates failure with steadfast paternal presence, rewiring shame into resilience. Such snapshots become the mortar that keeps the family triangle standing when cultural headwinds try to erode its edges. Without this safeguard, cracks widen invisibly. With it, the same structure thickens into a fortress wall, strong, enough to shelter not only this generation but the next. Attachment theory reminds us that children remember tone more than trophies, cadence more than medals. Your steady cadence tells him, "I am here, and you are enough." Those words metabolize into identity, shaping how he treats future friends, colleagues, and, one day, his own son. Psychological longitudinal studies show that young men who receive explicit paternal validation after visible setbacks register lower cortisol spikes under peer criticism 10 years later. In everyday language, that means they don't fold when life shouts, they recalibrate and press forward. So consider the habits we've explored: exclusive time, shared projects, public praise, healthy boundaries, a living code of honor, and imagine them layering day after day like transparent sheets of Kevlar. Each sheet feels thin on its own, almost trivial, yet 80 small layers stop the arrow the first layer never could. The fortress is not a single stone. It's the sum of deliberate actions repeated until they echo through muscle memory and family lore alike. If a vivid picture of that future flashed in your mind, maybe a game, a workshop, or a simple walk, drop the words, "Wall in progress" below. Your sentence could be the missing brick another father needs to lock his own triangle into place. If today's journey helped you tighten even one side of your family triangle, tap the like button so this conversation keeps echoing to parents who need it. And if you want more step-by-step tools to strengthen that safeguard wall, hit subscribe. Every new episode will land right where you're already building momentum. Let me know you stayed until the last frame by writing "Standing with the Wall" in the comments. I read each one, and it's the fastest way for us to keep shaping these stories together. There's a follow-up video waiting right here that dives into hands-on father-son projects you can start this weekend. Click over and walk with me there, and let's keep adding stones to the fortress.